We've got about 130 people offshore, about half our business is offshore. One of the things about this sort of event is you come along and you listen to all the punters saying what they've got to say, and at the end of the day you walk out and you think, well, what am I going to take with me? What is one thing that I can take with me? I was listening to Peter Crisp speaking earlier, and I just wanted to say to you that even though we've got 130 people offshore, we have over $1 billion of sales, we use NZTE heavily when we're entering new markets. Those guys know the demographics, they know how the markets work up there. We steal their staff, we second their people, we sit in their offices. They are really useful and you can really leverage them. And so if you're not, that's one thing that you can take with you today. NZTE is doing a great job. It's a really exciting organisation, and it's important for us in New Zealand because we lack scale, and these guys can help us. Moving on. One of the things we all share is we're down here in New Zealand at the bottom of the world. We're a long way from our markets. I don't know whether you've noticed, but from our perspective, the domestic market down here doesn't exist. We're a food business. Most of the food around the world is grown and eaten on the same continent. And yet most of our businesses are export businesses because our domestic market is tiny. So we're down here, we've got high land costs, high labour costs. Have you seen the exchange rate lately? Horrible. We've got scale constraints. We're tiny and we've got low population density. We share a whole lot of stuff. Doesn't sound too great, does it, to be a business down here? But we do benefit from some really exciting global trends. It's getting hotter, it's getting drier, and that really has a massive impact on supply-side constraints. There's significant urbanisation. We're seeing pressure on resources globally. There's a reason why there's huge FDI coming out of the big economies into the supply side, and that's because when you look at the demographics and you look at what's happening in the global environment, we're moving into an environment of scarcity. There's a lot of money to be made. We're getting older, we're getting fatter. Too many of us have got diabetes. There is a huge focus on health globally. That mega trend is massive for us here in New Zealand. Of course, we're at the bottom of Asia. When you look at where we are, we're sitting down here at the bottom of Asia, and there's an exploding middle class there, representing a huge opportunity for us. But two, life isn't getting easier. And it's not getting easier because globally the population is aging, and that's putting pressure on budgets. It's putting pressure on household budgets, it's putting pressure on government budgets. And so one of the ideas that's really important is that the business environment is evolving really, really quickly, and it's about running to keep up so that we're not made obsolescent. Zespri, we're owned by 2,700 New Zealand kiwi fruit growers, 13,000 hectares, around about 400,000 tonnes of kiwi fruit we are exporting globally. We do source fruit from Japan, from Korea, from Italy, from France. So we're not only taking kiwi fruit out of New Zealand, but also from some countries offshore. When we are thinking about our business, there are two things that occupy our minds, two high-level strategic thoughts that occupy our minds. One is, where is our growth going to come from? And the second is, how are we going to develop our competitive advantage so that we can make a margin, so that we can be profitable? Those are the two high-level thoughts. I'm going to focus primarily on that second issue, because actually making your margin is one of the hardest things to do. Before I do a bit of a deeper dive into that issue, I'm just going to touch on where our growth is going to come from. And really it's going to come from three areas for us. One is by developing markets, and obviously that's mature markets, but of course all of us are preoccupied with the rapidly developing markets. ASEAN, China, the Middle East, Brazil is another one that we would mention, Mexico, just enormous And you know, working to develop markets, a couple of things about it. One is it takes resource, it takes time. Time in the market is really, really important. And even though we're a relatively big business, actually we're resource constrained. And so it's working out, well, what's our priority? Now, if I get time, I'm going to come back and I'm going to touch on that issue a little bit later. But that's one of the ways we're going to grow it. Another way is by bringing new products to the market. And so over the last 10 years, we brought Zespri Gold to the market. That has generated fantastic returns for New Zealand kiwi fruit growers. Just as importantly, it develops excitement in the market. It gives us something to sell to our retail partners so that we've got a place in the sun. Finally, we are marketing health. Because people are concerned about health. They do want quality food. Health works. It's a really crowded space. And so there is a deep question about how do you differentiate yourself in that space. But again, if I get time, I'll come back to it. If I don't, I won't. We'll see how we go. Margin, look at them. Aren't they beautiful? New Zealand kiwi fruit. Brown and hairy. They are just fantastic. There they are in the contest. Don't they stand out there with the competition? Fantastic. I was talking to our breeders last week. I had a meeting with our breeders from Plant and Food, and I said, geez, there's orange ones, there's yellow ones, there's ones with the nice fans on top. I get the brown hairy ones. Thanks very much, guys. And so, one of the issues that we've got, you've heard me say, how are we going to develop margin? Well, I'll tell you what I'm pretty sure it's not. I'm pretty sure it's not by running a commodity business. There are structural factors in New Zealand which make it almost impossible for us to be successful in the commodity space. And the reason is that we're too small, we are too far away from markets. You know, commodity businesses, really successful commodity businesses, are built on low cost of production, proximity to markets, low cost access to capital. That's not us. So we've got to differentiate. Do we differentiate? Yeah, we do. We have about 1,000, and so just talking about our business for just a moment, we have about a third of the globally traded kiwi fruit market. But we in terms of margin at the orchard gate, we earn about 3/4 of the margin. And that's the differentiation story, that's the premium story. I want to talk a little bit about some of the factors that are important about how we go about that. First of all, how you design your supply chain, how you design your business, and where you invest is absolutely central. And in general, this is a generic picture, it comes out of a textbook, but it's really, really important stuff. In general, there's more money, your margin's going to be greater if you're investing disproportionately in the R&D and the design space and the marketing and the after-sales service space. The manufacturing space is a really, really tough space to be in and make a lot of margin in. So the design stuff, the R&D stuff, the marketing stuff, if you're going to be in a high margin differentiated business, you're going to have to invest in disproportionately in that sort of space. I am going quickly, there's a lot to cover, and Susan tells me I've got to be off in another 7 minutes. So next thing is, where do you compete, where do you collaborate? I had to listen to John Banks on the breakfast TV the other morning saying we were a monopoly. I thought that was very rude. It is true that New Zealand kiwi fruit growers, they do work together in some functions of the supply chain, but actually not that many. It's true that we work together in distribution management and brand and marketing and in innovation and in export operations. The total amount of capital that New Zealand kiwi fruit growers have invested in that part of the business model is about $70 million. $70 million. Zespri doesn't grow kiwi fruit. We don't pack kiwi fruit. We certainly don't distribute kiwi fruit in the markets. If you look at the capital invested in those parts of the supply chain, would you like me to answer that? If you look at the capital invested in those parts of the supply chain, then that's about $3.5 billion. And so there is a genuine question about where do you work collaboratively to try and build scale, and where do you compete? And it's a deep question, and when you're thinking about the design of your business, one that's really worth thinking about. Now, I want to talk about incentive design. People hardly ever talk about incentive design, but in my view, it's one of the most important things in building a differentiated supply chain. Obviously, we've got growers growing their kiwi fruit. We've got post-harvest partners with about a $600 million investment here in New Zealand packing the kiwi fruit. We've got big distribution partners offshore, much bigger than what Zespri is. Our market cap's about $70 million. We're a minnow. But we've got big distribution partners offshore, and of course we've got massive retail partners offshore. One of the things that's really important, so a couple of things, a couple of ideas. First thing is, of course, there's a strong competition between supply chains. New Zealand kiwi fruit competing with Chilean kiwi fruit as an example. But there's also a really strong competition inside the supply chain, a fight for margin inside the supply chain. When we're doing business with our partners, each one of them needs to make some money. And when they're prioritising our business and their business, the question they're asking themselves is, where is the margin? Where is the sustainable margin? Where is the long-term growth? And so how important is your business to your partners? Do they see a growth opportunity? Are they making a decent margin? Will you get the shelf space? Will you get the priority of the cool stores, in our case for our offshore distribution partners? And actually the way that you design the supply chain, who you're partnering with, what margin that they should be making, it's all about what your business means to them, and also how do you justify the margin that you're making in the supply chain? Because if you're not adding value to their business, what they will try and do is do business with you as the lowest cost commodity input they can. And if you find yourself in that space in New Zealand, you're probably buggered. What I'm going to try and do is give you a sense of how we do that at Zespri in one picture. And so the first idea is that what we're wanting to do is take to the market, and you don't do it overnight, but we want to have the leading portfolio of kiwi fruit products globally. We want the best green kiwi fruit. We want the best red kiwi fruit. We want the best gold kiwi fruit. Because, yeah, we've taken gold to the market and that's been hugely successful, but there's a whole lot of competitor varieties coming through, competitor golds coming through now. That's not the basis for our sustainable competitive advantage. It's the new products that we've got coming through, and it's having the best green, the best gold, and then making that quality recognisable through the brand. And so the point was made earlier, I think it was Peter who said, look, house brands are taking over, they're making it really hard to differentiate. Actually, our brand, we're having no problem in Germany. And the reason is that the retailers will say to us, and they'll say it openly, look, we know that in order to compete in the retail space, we're talking about Aldi and Lidl, we need to have really high quality produce. Your brand is associated with high quality, it adds value, we want it. And so what underpins the brand and our ability to differentiate the brand is the quality of the offering. Working together to invest in, so that's SPE, it stands for single point of entry. We could talk about integrated industry models. That's about growers not competing with each other to innovate, to develop these new cultivars, to market the offering, but working together in some parts of the supply chain. Having our brand on the shelf 12 months of the year, really, really important, because what it means for our retail partners, first of all, the brand is there in front of consumers 12 months of the year. Massive for us. Next thing, the retailers, we're offering category management to them 12 months of the year. And finally, the distributors who are wanting to make a margin on our business, it becomes a 12-month business for them as well. And so suddenly you've gone from a seasonal business to a 12-month business, and it's just got a whole lot more value to it. Finally, market share and penetration. You know, we're all playing the market share game, right? Because when you've got market share, you can invest in promotion and a whole lot of good things start happening for you. So it's like a big circle, it all adds together. So, key idea is that it's a combination of capabilities that add together that are difficult to replicate and in the end add value to the other partners in your supply chain that enable you to have a sustainable margin. Now, I am out of time, so I'm going to shut up now. Thank you very much.